Elena couldn't bear it anymore. Alexei had returned again in the early hours, reeking of alcohol and women's perfume. Alexei was already over 40, and in his life had come a period when some men often resembled teenagers, chasing after every skirt they saw. One fine day, Elena couldn't take it anymore and gave her husband an ultimatum. Either his partying stops, or they go their separate ways. Even though their child together was only 10 years old. And Alexei made his choice, he wasn't ready to part with his wild lifestyle. It couldn't be said that he disappeared from the family's life entirely, which Elena wished for, as it would have been easier to forget about him that way. His presence infuriated Elena. She barely held back from hitting him when Alexei visited their daughter. She would retreat to her room and not come out until he left. Occasionally, through mutual acquaintances, Elena would hear that he was dating Anna, then Irina, then Valentina. At one point, Elena decided she'd had enough and asked her husband not to tell her anything about his personal life anymore. She pretended that her ex-husband no longer existed, but not everyone adhered to Elena's rules, and sometimes people still told her who he was seeing this time. Gradually, Elena came to terms with the fact that there was no man in her life, and Alexei ceased to exist for her, and even those around her lost interest in teasing her about him. Their daughter grew up, and Alexei visited rarely. After some time, he simply started calling, and then even the calls stopped. Their last conversation with their daughter ended with her saying, "Father, because of you, Mother's whole life went downhill. I will never forgive you for that." Elena lived independently, occasionally starting romances, but they never led to anything serious. Once she went to the Carpathian Mountains, where she met a brave local mountaineer and hunter. Elena decided to end the relationship herself because at 50 it was difficult to climb mountains, have affairs, and she was plagued by various ailments. He refused to move to the city with her, and she didn't want to spend the rest of her life in the mountains. So she bravely accepted the prospect of growing old alone. Their daughter grew up and lived separately from her mother, renting her own place. Elena often felt sad, remaining alone after work. One late evening, someone rang the doorbell. Elena saw her ex-husband through the peephole. She had forgotten when they had last seen each other. He had aged and looked tired. Elena didn't want to let him in and was about to leave, but the man kept ringing persistently. She had to open the door. Alexei said with a sad smile, "Sorry for coming without warning." "What happened? Did you drink too much as usual?" "What are you talking about?" "I just missed you guys," replied Elena to her ex-husband. That night she let him stay, making a bed for him in the living room. He didn't need anything from Elena. He had a job and enough to live on. He just missed them. They drank tea, and Elena realized she no longer felt anger or disgust. They talked, reminiscing about the past. Throughout the night, Elena pondered why life had treated them this way. In the morning, she woke up to a delicious smell. As it turned out, Alexei had prepared breakfast and was waiting for her to wake up. Before leaving, he asked if he could come by sometimes. Elena nodded. After Alexei left, she called her daughter and shared what had happened. Her daughter smiled and suggested, "Well, where there's room for old love. Since you two lived together for many years, I don't care anymore. I've stopped being resentful." 6 months later, Alexei moved his things back into Elena's apartment. Their friends shook their heads, thinking she had lost her mind in her old age, but Elena replied, "Growing old together is easier." Passion left with hatred, but feelings remained. And they lived happily ever after, as if they had never been apart. During their separation, they realized the importance of cherishing what they had and found solace in each other. Elena proved to be a wise woman, forgiving her unfaithful husband and allowing him to return. And that's how she found her feminine happiness.